I bid my doubts adieu, as I admire the view from this house nestled between hills of heaven and nirvana. I take in the California night. The space between the lights speaks to me. It tells me of my shortcomings and all of my defeats. A voice insignificant when I'm driving down the streets to those Pacific doors that lead to those Pacific shores. I make my way on magic carpet with the Milky Way headliner. I was always a redliner. I've pushed my life to limits beyond the scope of vision. I climb the ranks of reason through the repetition of responding to my intuition. I don't really know how to start this video, so I'm just going to get straight into it. I've been struggling. Okay, if it hasn't been apparent through my videos, then I'm telling you right now that I have been struggling mightily with my mental health. And I couldn't really figure out why this was. Okay, on paper, I have pretty much everything that I thought I ever wanted, and yet I'm still not happy. Okay, and I take as many opportunities as I can, especially nowadays, to consciously express my gratitude for the life that I'm living, for the progress that I've made, but a lot of times that's just not enough. Okay, it's just not enough. It's like I want something else, but that something else cannot be found outside of me. And yet I still seek that feeling from outside of me through more success, but at the same time, that inner knowing that me being more successful will not improve my mental health or increase my happiness, that kind of robs me of a lot of the ambition that I used to have. Now, one thing that I said in the poem at the beginning of this video was, I bid my doubts adieu as I admire the view from this house nestled between hills of heaven and nirvana. I take in the California night. The space between the lights speaks to me. It tells me of my shortcomings and all of my defeats. Now, in that section of the poem, basically all I'm trying to say is that there's this big misconception that success brings happiness. And maybe for some people it does, but for me it doesn't. What I found is that the happiness that you experience with success is temporary. It is very temporary, and once it wears off, you either want more or you wise up and you realize that you can't keep seeking that happiness from outside of yourself. Now, some people, they might know this, but it doesn't matter. They continue to feed into that ambitious side of themselves anyways. Guys like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, who chase that feeling of fulfillment, which will always be just out of reach, and end up becoming one of the greatest to ever do it at whatever it is that they choose to do, whatever it is they choose to pursue on their path to greatness. But I would imagine that they probably felt pretty empty inside, because at the end of the day, you can never achieve that sense of fulfillment from outside of yourself. Okay, and as I've gotten to this level, as I've climbed the ranks and gotten my first YouTube plaque, which of course I don't plan on that being my only plaque, but as I've accumulated these accolades, I've realized that I'm never gonna find that happiness and that peace in numbers. Thinking that my bank account or my subscriber count or my view count or any other number that I could ever conceive of will bring me happiness is very, very short-sighted thinking. And I think I've always known this deep down, but my ego was so strong and I just didn't know better. I had to experience it for myself, and now I have. And like I said, these are issues that no amount of success could ever fix. Now, it's very interesting because I feel like I always come to this same exact conclusion, just at different levels, right before I experience another wave of success in my life. Okay, and that's why in the poem I said, a voice insignificant when I'm driving down the streets to those specific doors that lead to those Pacific shores. Okay, for those of you who don't know, okay, I've expressed my desire to move to California and live that type of lifestyle. Not so much the Hollywood industry lifestyle, but more so the calm, relaxing beach lifestyle, the high life basically. Okay, it's very appealing to me, and I use that as a metaphor in this poem for the pinnacle of success. That is the pinnacle of success in my eyes, is to be able to live that type of lifestyle. And yet, at the same time, I know that what really would bring me that feeling that I desire is present moment awareness and present moment appreciation for where I am. But it feels like whenever I express my gratitude to the extent that I'm completely content with the present moment, I lose that ambition, to my point earlier. I lose my sense of desire for more. And that's a balance that I've mightily struggled with on my YouTube journey, is trying to be grateful for everything that I have while also pursuing everything that I desire. And while it was a prevalent issue in the past,
Now that I've introduced writing into my life or decided to really pursue that to a greater extent, it's really, really compounded this imbalance in my life. Because now I feel it as far as my writing goes and as far as YouTube goes. So I'm feeling it twofold instead of just with YouTube. And it's tearing me apart mentally. Okay, I made a video pretty recently talking about how writing was my true passion and not YouTube. But what I've realized is that that's a limited way of thinking. That is a short-sighted way of thinking. I shouldn't have to pick a direction to go in. The only direction that I should be going in is up. Okay, I should be focused on being the best YouTuber that I can be whenever I'm in front of this camera and being the best writer that I could be whenever I open that Google document. But it seems like in my mind, I want to pick a path because I want that greatness. There's still that part of me that wants that greatness. And that's why in the poem I said, I make my way on magic carpet with the Milky Way headliner. I was always a redliner. I've pushed my life to limits beyond the scope of vision. Okay, I have worked very, very hard in these past few years. I've probably put in more work since the start of 2020 than I've put in all the previous years of my life combined. School, jobs, everything included. Okay, I have put in a lot of work. And honestly, I don't give myself enough credit for that. As I'm filming this video, I've posted somewhere between 700 and 800 videos, and the vast majority of those videos were filmed and edited by me, and I made my own thumbnails, and I acquired all of the skills that I needed and invested in all of the equipment that I needed to make that happen for every single video. Okay, if you look on my channel, you won't see too many low effort flop videos. You won't see that. Okay, a lot of my videos I've put some type of thought and effort into. And like I said, I don't give myself enough credit for that. I've really put in a lot of work, and I think that right there, that's the key to overcoming that barrier in my mind. And that might be in your mind if you're still watching this video. Okay, the barrier that prevents you from achieving more because you want to be happy in the present moment. I'm here to tell you that those two things are not mutually exclusive. You can be grateful for where you are and focus on expanding that gratitude. Okay, when you build that foundation of being grateful, that not only allows you to be more open for opportunities for more gratitude in your life, but you can enjoy those opportunities once they present themselves and once you act upon those opportunities as well. Okay, you could have everything that you ever thought you wanted in your life, but if you still have the lack mindset, you will be miserable. This is why I always say that money can't buy happiness. The problems that I have, these demons that I'm dealing with right now, I can't solve them with money. You could deposit $1 million into my bank account, and yes, it would make me temporarily happy. I'd be able to travel and just live my life more freely. But truth be told, it wouldn't solve the problems that I have because these problems are not caused by money. Money can only solve the problems that it creates. And in the same way, your mind can only solve the problems that it creates. Okay, so all of these problems are self-created, self-generated. All of this pain, this suffering that I've dealt with in these past few years, this confusion, this inner turmoil, this depression, is self-inflicted. That's not to say that it's my fault, but I have to take accountability because that is the first step toward being able to give myself the credit for all of the great things that have occurred in my life. Accountability works both ways, for both positive and negative. And if I'm being honest, I'm coming up with this on the spot. These are the answers that I didn't have before I turned this camera on today. And hopefully I'm helping you find the answers as well. Okay, now the next thing that I said in the poem was, I climbed the ranks of reason through the repetition of responding to my intuition. In other words, logic is limiting. Okay, a lot of times when you deal with self-doubt, which I'm assuming if you're watching the video still at this point, you deal with self-doubt and my words are resonating with you. When you deal with self-doubt, it's because you are still within your logical mind. Okay, you are walking by sight. But in order to be a liberator, an innovator, somebody who does things that nobody has ever seen or experienced before, in order to carve new paths that weren't previously there, you have to walk by faith and not by sight. Okay, and that involves expanding what you believe to be logical. You see, one thing that I've learned on my path is that a lot of times we think that things are logical, but that's because that's all we've been exposed to. But when you make certain moves, when you follow your intuition and you do it again and again and again, your definition of what's logical begins to change. For example, when I was in college, it seemed very illogical for me to drop out because I had been conditioned to believe, and I had accepted the conditioning that led me to believe that college was the only path to success. But in reality, it wasn't. Okay, and now in hindsight, as I'm sitting here in my own apartment with that YouTube plaque behind me, talking to this camera to make a living to pay my rent, I know that. I know that with 100% certainty that if you don't want to be in college, the logical decision is to drop out. It's logical, it's rational. Why would you be in college if you don't want to be there? But like I said, I had to take that leap of faith and follow my faith, and that is what enabled me to see the things that I see in the way that I see them. That's what enabled me to expand my definition of what is rational, what is logical, what is reasonable. Okay, and if you want to be successful in this life, you're going to have to do that. But it starts with you. It starts with you taking accountability for your own life, taking accountability for the positive and the negative that's going on in your life, taking control of your mind as the source of this positivity and negativity, the source of your perceptions of everything that's happening in your life. And once you take that accountability, that gives you the freedom to expand upon your perspective because you realize that your fate, your destiny is entirely in your control.